This is part 2 of Rethinking Healthy Eating.
So they couldn't really, although we do it, go willy-nilly into a health food store and just pick up all the fruits and vegetables that they might think are healthy, or all the whole grains, because even though it's quote unquote healthy, it may not be healthy for the individual. And you can determine that by the ELISA Act test.
That's why you need to do the test.
Exactly.
If I could tell you what you needed to avoid without the test, I would be psychic. I'm not psychic. I can't tell you without the test.
So who would benefit from this test? Would everyone benefit from this testing?
No. If you have any chronic illness, you need this test. If you have any autoimmune, if you have any cardiovascular, I did cardiovascular research before I opened up the lab. So I'm very familiar with the causes of cardiovascular disease, and they're mostly repair deficit. They're mostly inflammatory until catastrophe. And you can avoid the catastrophe by following this program so that you restore your ability to repair. Therefore, you don't have cardiovascular illness. You restore your ability to be in balance, to get enough repair done so you avoid all autoimmune illnesses. There are somewhere between 100 and 1,000 syndromes and conditions that are called autoimmune today. They end in itis. Itis of any kind means inflammation, means repair deficit. So we want you to understand what the meaning is and what to do about it, because what to do is to repair and renew.
So does health insurance pay for this test? Of course, I know the answer.
No, this is a very important question. Actually, for many years, Medicare did pay for our test and other private carriers did pay for the test. In about 1986 or 87, there was pressure to reduce the increase in Medicare and Medicaid. And they said, going forward, we will pay for vanilla. We will pay for routine tests, anything unusual, anything innovative, anything that's based on function or cell culture, we won't pay for it. So they used to pay for it. They don't anymore.
So in my opinion, though, and I know the test by some people's standards, it would be considered expensive. But I feel that whatever you value and whatever you give priority to in your life, you will find a way to get it.
Right.
That people have the money if they want to get a designer bag, or if they want a luxury car or a luxury trip, they find the money to do so. I feel that you just need to make your health a priority, because when you lose it, it is very hard to get it back very often.
And you won't be able to enjoy that bag or that vehicle or that trip if you're not feeling well yourself.
Correct. I remember, I'm shifting back to the diabetes again, because I remember you saying that you were diabetic in a lecture and you totally got rid of it.
I was pre-diabetic. I had a hemoglobin. Yeah, I was pre-diabetic. I had a hemoglobin A1C of 7. I weighed 65 pounds more. I have lost the 65 pounds and I'm not going to find it again. Now, what did I do differently? I decided to follow my own program. I decided to eat the whole foods that I could digest, assimilate, and eliminate based on the LRA test. I decided to walk more. I now like walking about a half an hour a day. I always have meditated, but I was more attentive to my mindfulness practices, because when you sit and relax or you are practicing a meditation, a lot of good things happen in the background. So we have a whole program. We recommend that people read the guide that we produce because it is very specific for them. they've included a health appraisal questionnaire, so we know a little bit about them and what's going on with them, so that we can then personalize the mind and body and spirit connections.
Excellent, excellent. I also noticed that you recommend an alkaline diet. And I have to admit that I really didn't understand that, because to me, we were taught in medical school that we do this acid-base balance thing with our body, and we always keep ourselves in a certain pH anyway. So how does this work, and why is it necessary that we follow an alkaline diet?
Because the food effects on body chemistry can only be determined by looking at the chart of the food effects on body chemistry. What you learned, and like I learned, is about acid ash residue. It's a way of burning up the food and seeing what minerals are left. That turns out to be very misleading. So we have misled doctors, and they have misled their patients. They need to follow the food effects on body chemistry. It's in the Natick Nutrition Guide, which is one of the National Defense Department guides to nutrition. It's around now. It's been only 20 years that we produce it. We actually went through and looked at the effects on body chemistry of different foods. And then we compared it to the Department of Agriculture results from the 1950s. In the 1950s, the Department of Agriculture had people eat just one food for 2 weeks. You couldn't do that experiment today, but they did it for 35 or 36 foods, having people eat only that food for 2 weeks and then seeing the impact on body chemistry. And our formula correlated completely with that. Then we went on to do hundreds of other foods and chemicals so that you can know which are the more alkaline forming, which are the more acid forming, which are the neutral foods. And you should eat 80% on the alkaline side if you're recovering, and at least 60% to make up for the extra acid of metabolism if you're well.
If you would like to schedule an appointment for the LRA ELISA Act test with a practitioner in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, call Dr. Dyson's office at 202-575-4660 or visit cflwellness.com. To find a practitioner in your area, call 800-553-5472 or visit client services at elisaact.com.
So these are specific foods. Are they specific for the individual?
No. You start with the food effects on body chemistry to know whether the food is alkaline forming or acid forming. Then you drop out any of the items that are reactive on our test.
Is that done by measuring your urine pH? Is that how you gather that information?
Well, that's one of the 8 predictive biomarkers is urine pH. That tells you how much magnesium you need inside the cell to avoid metabolic acidosis and all of the consequences of magnesium deficiency, which include your energy molecule ATP requires 1 molecule of magnesium for every ATP molecule to work. You then need magnesium inside the mitochondrial battery so that it works. It establishes what's called the proton gradient. We're getting a little technical.
Yes, we're very scientific now. This is doctor speak.
This is doctor speak, but magnesium balances calcium. What calcium activates, magnesium relaxes. We need more magnesium. We need more choline and citrate. And the way we get it is by measuring urine pH. That tells us how much we need.
And what are the other predictors of health that you?
Well, the other predictive biomarkers, hemoglobin A1C, which we already talked about. Then there is HSCRP. That's the measure of repair deficit inflammation, HSCRP.
And what level would you like that to be, the CRP?
Less than 0.5.
Okay.
And then next is homocysteine. It should be a plasma homocysteine. It should be less than 6. LRA test should be non-reactive, but this is part of the predictive biomarkers are the LRA tests. Then vitamin D, it should be 50 to 80. Omega-3 index should be more than 8%. And then the one test that's very unusual measures how much distress is in your DNA, in your nucleus of your cell, and that's 8-oxoguanine. That urine value should be less than 5. And then urine pH, which should be between 6.5 and 7.5.
Let's go back to the omega-3, that level. Many of Americans and probably people worldwide consume a lot of omega-6 fatty acids, which is inflammatory, and not enough of the omega-3 fatty acids. So how do they get that level of omega-3 up? What does that mean for the body to have that index? I know it has to do with strokes and heart attacks, etc. So discuss the omega-3 index a little bit more.
The omega-3 index tells you one aspect of cardiovascular risk, autoimmunity risk, and cancer risk, as well as chronic illness risk. It should be more than 8%. That's what Bill Harris established as the index. I happened to register 13.6. So I called up Bill Harris and I said, is 13.6 better than 8? He says, well, it's higher than 8, but we don't have enough people up at your level to know how much better that is. He's a very careful analytic scientist. And what I say is you need more fish and less meat. You need less cow dairy. You need less packaged, processed, ultra-processed foods. You need less chipped and crisped foods. You need to be eating whole foods. And snacks should be things like carrots or broccoli or cauliflower. And that's how we live. We live pretty well out in the woods in Vienna, Virginia, but we don't have any excess omega-6, and we have lots of omega-3 rich foods. But for almost all Americans, they need to supplement with fish oil that's been distilled under nitrogen to take the bad stuff out and concentrate the EPA, DHA. Those are the active omega-3 fats. You need both. You need EPA for body and brain. You need DHA for brain and body. You need both. And you need it in micellized soft gels where the oil has been distilled under nitrogen to get rid of the bad and protect the good.
I think most people don't realize when they go to health food stores, they think everything that's in the health food store is healthy. But even the quote unquote healthy snacks are high in omega-6 fatty acids because they're usually using like safflower oil or soybean oil or something of that nature.
If it's crisp or chipped, leave it alone. I just had an IG Live with Dr. Artemis Simopoulos, the mother of the Greek Mediterranean diet. She just has a book out on how important omega-3 is and how much excess omega-6 most Americans get, and why part of their chronic illness is because of excess omega-6 and a deficit of omega-3. I have learned a lot from Artemis Simopoulos. She has been championing this message of whole foods and healthy oils forever.
I think I heard her speak. You had an event, and I met her and heard her lecture.
Yes, you have a good memory because I remember introducing you. I was glad to do that. Artemis is just a wonderful human being. I get to hang out with wonderful human beings like you and share the message.
She did a study, or she was involved in a study where they were looking at omega-6s and omega-3s, and they, I think they gave people vegetable oil.
Well, no,
omega-3.
Well, the report that she did is called the Bellagio report. I'm a co-author on that report with her. It points out how much we need omega-3s and how much we do not need omega-6. If they're in balance, that's fine. But most Americans take in 30 to 60 times more omega-6 than omega-3. That's a terrible imbalance, and it promotes ill health right and left.
And I think people, they think they're eating healthy when they eat salads, but also the salad dressing is a culprit because it has a lot of omega-6 fatty acids, even in the health food store. You know, they've got to pay attention to what they're consuming.
The fact that it's in a health food store does not make it healthy.
Well, we know that.
No, that's absolutely true. Unfortunately, you would like to think the edibles oil industry. I say you don't need edible oils at all. They cause problems. You can cook with broth or wine or water or a tagine, which is a Moroccan device that you fill up the food and then you use the moisture in the food to cook the food. It's quite delicious. So come to my kitchen and you'll see whole foods in a variety of ways that are easy to prepare without edible oils, without sugar, without anything from a box, a can, or a package.
Awesome. Are there any other recommendations or things from the predictive test that you think can help people become healthier?
Well, hydration, of course, is very important. Drink 3 to 4 liters a day or equivalent of water or equivalent. But of all the things that I recommend that make a difference in people's lives, it's enough vitamin C, based on the C cleanse, enough vitamin C, and enough polyphenolics. Polyphenolics like are quercetin dihydrate and soluble OPC, which raises nitric oxide more than anything else. It helps repair and helps the immune system recover from ill health. So if I was going to give one thing, and I won't because I shouldn't, but if I was going to give one thing, I would recommend C based on the C cleanse and then polyphenolics to go along with hydration.
What are polyphenolics contained in? What type of, is it food or
Well,
supplementation?
you can eat your polyphenolics, but you would end up needing to eat many pounds of the polyphenolic foods to
Which
get
are
the
what?
amount. Oh, polyphenolic foods are the foods that are, for example, grape seeds. It turns out in order for a seed of a grape to sprout, it needs polyphenolics. But most of the polyphenolics we get from grapes today are solvent extracted. They are not water extracted, and they're not healthy polyphenolics. So you have to be a little bit aware or work with a professional who is aware in order to guide you to the right form of polyphenolics, like quercetin dihydrate and soluble OPC. That stands for orthoproanthocyanidins. I really am a biochemist, but soluble OPC is the flavonol of choice, and quercetin dihydrate is the flavonoid of choice. And we have Jay Srimani and I have published and republished a review article on the 20,000 or more polyphenolics in foods and which ones are irritating and harmful and which ones are more helpful. And the bottom line is quercetin dihydrate and soluble OPC are the best.
So that would be in a supplement form,
Supplement.
and they can get that from your company?
Oh, yes, we make Pain Guard and we make Repair Guard. The only difference between the two is that the Repair Guard also has some evaporated pomegranate juice. Ellagic acid is rich in pomegranate juice, and that potentiates the quercetin dihydrate and soluble OPC. So yes, I have gone from a skeptic to an advocate, and I am deeply involved in the quality end of the supplement industry because most of what you see on a bottle label is phony. We were the first in the world to be a full disclosure supplement company, 1987. And we have continued to be that because we want people to know how good we are.
How much vitamin C do you recommend per day? Or is it an individual specific thing as
Yes,
well?
it's quite individual. If you do a C cleanse, you can find out for yourself by taking variable amounts of potent C, variable amounts of vitamin C, every 15 minutes until you cleanse. Now, cleansing means you have a flush. This is like an enema from within. This is so distinctive that anyone who's ever done it knows exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't done a C cleanse, you're not quite sure what I'm talking about. But you can find out for yourself in a few hours most of the time how much ascorbate you need. And it's very individual. You might need 5 grams, you might need 50.
So when you get the flush, you back down a little bit from that amount, and
Well,
that.
no. You get the cleanse tells you the total amount to induce the cleanse. Then you take half or 3/4 of that spread through the day because you did the cleanse quickly, like a couple of hours. And that will tell you how much to take spread through the day. So let's say the cleanse takes 15 grams. 2/3 of 3/4 of 15 grams is 12.5. You should take between 10 and 12.5 spread through the day. What I do is I get up in the morning. I know how much vitamin C based on my C cleanse I'm going to be taking that week. I put that amount of powder in a jogger's bottle and I put water in it, mineral water, spring water. I happen to have well water, but mineral water. And then I sip on it throughout the day.
Okay. And what type of water should we be drinking?
Well, that becomes very complicated. I have well water, third aquifer well water going through the hard pan into the deep water that's thousands of years old. That's the ideal. The next choice is mineral spring water. You can get 5-gallon carboys. These are vessels that you put on a little tilting table to allow you to pour out as much as you want. This is an inexpensive way of getting mineral water delivered to your home. Mountain Valley, others. If you want to go elegantly, you might choose Pellegrino or Apollinaris or Gerolsteiner. These are classic therapeutic waters. They're also mineral rich. They have more than 1,000 milligrams of dissolved solids, which is the minerals, in a liter. So I have either well water or I like sparkling Pellegrino.
What about reverse osmosis water and adding minerals back to it? Is that any good?
First of all, there's the cost of the RO, the reverse osmosis system. Then you have to flow 50 gallons of water through the system to get 1 gallon out. And today you have to pay for that water, probably. More importantly, the RO process does not handle solvent residues. It does not handle persisting organic hormone disrupting pollutants. So you have created an illusion. It does what it does. But I say if you have an RO system, you should change the filter at least twice as often, maybe 3 times as often as the company recommends. That's expensive because if you don't, within a month or two, there will be little holes punctured in the membrane, and then it really doesn't work the way you think it does. So RO is very popular, but I say no to RO.
You mentioned other things such as vitamin D, and I had a vitamin D researcher on last week, and we talked about that. What is the best way to measure vitamin D in your opinion? Is it blood level?
No. We know the answer. Dr. Mike Hollick, who's known as Dr. Sunshine, taught me, and the answer is 25-hydroxy-D. There is D2 and D3. You can measure them separately if you want, but I don't know what that means. I know that D2 is synthetic and I know that D3 is natural, but if I have the ratio of how much D2 you're eating, I will suggest you eat less vitamin fortified D2 rich food. The 25-hydroxy-D is the meaningful measure. Occasionally we need the 1 and the 25. That's if you have kidney disease. If you have kidney disease, you should be taken care of by a nephrologist, a specialist in kidney disease, who should understand how to accurately and correctly measure vitamin D. There was a New York Times article not too long ago that said everyone in the country is low in vitamin D. It's normal to be low. Statistically, it is normal if it's average. And therefore, we shouldn't measure vitamin D and we shouldn't supplement with vitamin D. And this was a very distinguished science writer in the New York Times. I wrote a response. They didn't publish it. We know from Dr. Mike Hollick and many others, including Heaney and other experts in vitamin D, you want to measure 25-hydroxy-D. That's what you need for clinical purposes. If you need to get into details, talk to Mike Hollick. Talk to someone who is a full-time vitamin D researcher.
But do the blood levels correlate to cellular levels of D? Because I
No, no,
personally,
no, 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 no. It turns out that vitamin D is a small molecule. It needs a certain amount of K2 to get into the cell, but it's a small molecule. We call it a vitamin, but it's really a neurohormone. What it does, it has two arms, and it looks at one cell, and it attaches to one cell, and it looks for another cell nearby. When it finds and attaches to another cell, it says, okay, stop dividing, we have enough cells. When it can't find another cell to attach to, it says divide. It's a neurohormone. Now, it turns out that if you just take vitamin D and you don't take any K2, the vitamin D won't get in. So you need to take a small amount of K2 with the D3, and then you may need to take more D3 by drops under the tongue, because that's the reliable way to get in. It turns out that millions and millions of people do not absorb vitamin D from their intestines because their intestines are so inflamed and unwell. So you want drops of vitamin D under the tongue to get you into the 50 to 80 range. That's the healthy range. A little bit below that, a little bit above that is okay. I'm giving you the safe and healthy range is 50 to 80, not 20 or 30.
now I happen to have done some genetic testing, and I have a vitamin D receptor defect. Have you
That
had
means you should take more drops of D3 under your tongue because you have a relative deficiency. Now, I mean relative. That means you can compensate by taking a little more vitamin D. If you had an absolute deficiency of that receptor, you wouldn't be talking to me.
I'd be dead, probably.
That's what I mean. I was being more polite, but that's what I mean.
Yeah. Any other recommendations, things that the public doesn't know that you would recommend for them? Enlighten us.
I'm trying to think of what can I say that will inspire people to follow through one step at a time. Take a little corrective step today to hydrate better. Take a little corrective step to avoid chipped and crisp food and have a sweet pepper or broccoli or cauliflower or carrots as snacks. You can make little changes that have profound impacts on your overall health and well-being. I want you to live long and well. I'm planning to be dancing when I'm 120, and I want my friends with me.
You graduated from medical school the year I graduated from high school, and you are still in great health. So you're the person to follow. I want to
thank you for saying it in that way. That was very thoughtful. But yes, I am older, and hopefully I've learned a little bit from it that I can share with others. But yes, I'm getting to be old enough that I remember giants of medicine who taught me how important personalized care and individualized care is, like Hans Selye and Albert Szent-Györgyi and other. They wouldn't make sense to you, but these are very important names in my history.
I know who they are.
Okay.
I haven't met them as
giants.
you have, but I know who they are.
No. And I really did have the pleasure of working with them. Albert Szent-Györgyi was on the faculty of Boston University Medical Center, and once a year he would come and give a talk. And he was fascinating. He told you things that you didn't know before, and he told you in a way that made you want to go more deeply into the subject. And so that's how I have modeled myself. I think this is what you do through this vehicle and through your practice. And we want people to be well and happy. We want to show them the path, and then they have to follow it.
Thank you, Dr. Jaffe, for being the pioneer, the innovator, and being so dedicated to the health of others. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join me in this show. And I'll talk to you again soon.
If you would like to schedule an appointment for the LRA ELISA Act test with a practitioner in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, call Dr. Dyson's office at 202-575-4600. 4660 or visit cflwellness.com. To find a practitioner in your area, call 800-553-5472 or visit client services at elizaact.com.